What's up, guys?
Right, stop that! Silly!
And now for something completely different.
Welcome back, guys. In the last video I said I'd be doing the gold, the face and the cloak. Slight change of plans. After editing, the video was going to be well over an hour, so I figured
ain't nobody got time for that!
So today we'll be looking at some of the more complex surfaces for the gold. The face and the cloak will be on separate videos. Alright, so to get going, we'll start off like we did last time with some Games Workshop XV88, and we'll thin this down with some water to a heavy glaze consistency. Notice the way the paint behaves on the palette here. You can see that it pulls back when you draw the brush through it, and you want to aim for the same level of elasticity. Now we'll pull this over the surface in the direction of our highlight. I say this quite a lot in my videos, but it really is a key concept. More pigment is left on the model at the end of your brush stroke, so you always want to be moving the bristles in the correct direction in order to build up a smooth transition. On these parts, the highlight is mostly going to be towards the upper edge where the light would catch it. Here we'll be using the concept of opposites to create a strong contrast. Now, opposites is basically an idea where you place a shadow directly adjacent to your highlight. It's really good for two or more flat surfaces that are joined together at an angle. So essentially, the light flows up one side and then falls down over the other. I can show a really good example of that on the foot here. So we'll pull the pigment down to the lower edge on this side, and we'll build that up over a couple of layers so that we transition into a nice solid colour at the edge. And on the other side of the foot we'll do essentially the same thing, but this time we'll push the highlight in the opposite direction so that the pigment gathers at the upper edge. And this is going to put each of our highlights directly adjacent to the darkest areas. For our first highlight, we used Vallejo Japanese Uniform, which we'll mix with some water to the same consistency we used for the XV88. And again, we'll pull this towards our highlight. Notice I'm always moving the brush in the direction of the light. Apply this over a couple of layers so that the colour is nice and bright at the highlight. For these little thin cylindrical parts, we'll pull the highlight to the centre. Now ideally with a cylindrical surface, the highlight should run along the length, but there is not enough surface area on these to do that, so what we're going to do is use a bit of artistic license, and we're going to opt for what looks cool over what is correct. So just keep going back and forth between these areas until you're happy with the brightness. Add a fair amount of white to the Japanese uniform and continue to build up your highlights. You'll be working on a much smaller surface area this time, so it's okay to have the paint be slightly thicker than before. You still want to be able to control the transitions, but the paint doesn't need to be as transparent as it was in the last two steps. Notice here that I'm trying to keep these highlights quite small. That's one of the keys to getting a shiny appearance. Your contrast should be wide in terms of colours, but in comparison your transitions should be short. If you were to do quite a wide transition, it will still look cool, but it will give you more of a polished stone effect, and that's not really what we're going for. So try and keep your contrast wide, but your transitions tight. Add a bit more white and we'll do another round of highlights. I'm just hitting the very edges here. For our last highlight we'll use white and we'll keep the paint quite thick for this. Just an aside here, I'm showing scale colour white on the screen, but I actually use Winsor Newton titanium white. It comes in one of those big paint tubes, so the picture doesn't really fit on the screen as well as the little model bottles, so I'm using that instead. So when we're doing these, we want to hit where the colour is the brightest, and then after that we want to add a few tiny dots here and there in the darker areas. And that's going to help give that shiny finish. I'll show the process again on the calf here. So we're starting off with the Japanese uniform and we're going to build up the highlights so that it's around the centre of these little armour plates. Use your second highlight colour to push the contrast, again focusing around the centre of the plates. Here on the side we'll build up the highlights to simulate the light catching the upper edge. So you can see here I'm placing the white highlights in the darker regions. It's the same kind of idea you use when painting a gemstone. Now on this flat area I'll add a bit of interest by painting noise lines. So essentially I'm going to be painting little lines across the surface so that they are parallel to the line at the upper edge. We'll add a little edge highlight here with our brighter mix. Then just finish it off with a few white dots. And the same again along this edge here. So you can see the process is actually quite straightforward. It's basically a heavy glaze with XV88 over black, another heavy glaze with Japanese uniform, then just a couple of highlights before finishing off with a few white dots. We'll add a couple more white highlights here. You can see how big a difference just adding a single white highlight makes. Alright guys, so that is how to paint gold, or at least one way to do it. Hopefully this gives you a better idea on how to approach it. Next video we'll be looking at how to paint the face, and I'll show you how to do that cool little OSL effect. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks again. Bye for now.